Yes, sir, I'm just like
We're going to get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Vicki Haller-Graf. I am the program director at the Triptych Federation, but not for long. I'm sure as you walked in, you saw Adi Shalov-Smidman as our incoming program director. That's very exciting. And we're very happy to welcome you to Noontime Knowledge. And our presenter today, Sara Howells from the Triptych Federation, talking about modern art. But first, I just want to remind you, next week on Tuesday at noon, we have Jesse Bernstein from Theater Ariel in Philadelphia coming to talk about Jewish theater, drama, and diaspora. So this should be a great talk. It's part talk, part performance, and I think very enjoyable for all of us. We'll learn a lot. We'll have a good time. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Sara to enjoy the program.
Thank you very much. So today's talk is a following bookend to the last talk on artists like Jackson Pollock and his work being used as a propaganda tool to show that American artists are so free, and that is one of the benefits of the communistic side of the Cold War. So last time we discussed a lot of men, but luckily a lot of female artists are now becoming more and more well-known. Some of these artists do have reasons why their body of work, otherwise known as an oeuvre, for your fancy word of the day, has been lost through various means. And so while there are more quite well-known post-World War II artists, I saved enough for a part two. So because we are dealing with this of their femininity being stripped away. And so because of that, a lot of these artists have to look to their own bodies and what is it like to have the feminine experience. There is an artist who will be dealing with a very personal view, and I will talk to her before we get that. Please feel free, as always, to ask questions as we're doing things. I started with the Guerrilla Girls. So the Guerrilla Girls are an anonymous group. We have no idea who they are. We don't know how many they are. These are women artists who put on big old gorilla masks, and they make posters and other detail-driven art. So this is one of my favorites, the advantages of being a woman artist, working without the pressure of stress, not having to be in shows with men, having an escape from the art world in your 4 freelance jobs, knowing your career might pick up after you're 80, being reassured that whatever kind of art you make will be labeled as feminine, no matter what other style it is, not being stuck in a tenured teaching position, seeing your ideas live on in the works of others. That's a hard one. Having the opportunity to choose between career and motherhood, which a lot of those thoughts will be explored. Not having to choke on those big cigars or paint in Italian suits. Having more time to work when your mate dumps you for someone younger. Being included in revised versions of art history, which is happening now. I love it, better late than never, but it's kind of ironic that women have been vocal for a long time and it's just 2025 and we're starting to get an alternative view of art history canon, and no having to undergo the embarrassment of being called a genius, and finally getting your picture in art magazines wearing a gorilla suit. What is that, sir? Is that so? So this is another work of the Guerrilla Girls. Do women have to be naked to get into the Met Museum? Less than 5% of artists in modern art sections are women, but 85% of nudes are female. And this is a very poignant stance because the most common reason given to why these women are not given their due or shows is because it makes the viewer uncomfortable. And you will see the difference between a female nude for the female gaze and for history versus the female nude that you are most familiar with, which is for the male gaze. Now, the male gaze and the female gaze are fairly standard art history terms, and they've bled their way into the pop culture. But is everybody familiar with the male gaze versus? Okay, so the female gaze is like me and you. I love your jacket. I love your glasses. They really accent your hair. You look amazingly confident today. As opposed to, I like your glasses. I like your hair. That's the male gaze. The female gaze, a little bit softer. But think about it. When you go to the art museum and you see nude women, it's mostly for the enjoyment and the playfulness of what's called as the male gaze. This is art for women by women who can get beyond that and step into the emotional side. Oops. So the first is Claude Cahun. Now, I am kind of cheating here because Claude, after they were held in concentration camps and their hair was shaved, their femininity broke because it was taken away from them forcefully under duress. And after that, they never quite gained that feminine sense back because they felt it had been taken too violently and too permanently. Right. So up at the top here, we have Lucy, as she was known then, in bed. Now again, when we think of a woman in bed, we think of a woman on top of the bed reclining for the male gaze. But this is taken from above, and her hair is wild and unnatural, but it's clipped. It's just her head. And this, of course, was reminiscent of the photographs that were taken during the Holocaust for your IDs. That you were nothing but a head, nothing but a name, and nothing but an animal. This is a first photograph after returning home from being arrested and spending over a year in the camps. As you can tell, they dropped the name Lucy because they would never be able to complete their act as a woman, and so they became Claude. During the war, Claude, because they were seen as the other, they would put little pamphlets in the soldiers' coats, and that was their way of protest. And nobody thought that they were, anything important because they were just a woman. Until the top brass started reading what she was putting in their pockets. Then they came back to the Isle of Jersey where she lived and arrested her and her partner, them and their partner. After returning, you see this is the most common depiction of Claude. You can see that with the mirror you're working with this duality. You have the person inside who can no longer exist and can only exist in that moment or as a reflection of how you are now. And this is the person who they consider to be Lucy. And this type of photography is extremely rare to see because Claude's entire home and all their artworks were burned by the Nazis. So unfortunately there's 10 pieces left. But the pieces we do have show how they were trying to stand up for their rights as a Jewish person, but also how being a Jewish person forced them to become someone else. What country is she from? She's French. She's from Nantes. Yes. Claude So Janet Sobel was the lady who I was talking about last time. Janet Sobel was a Ukrainian artist, and she was also a Holocaust survivor, a direct survivor. And she never went to art school. She was a grandmother who would put her grandchildren down to sleep, and then she would put on the music of her childhood and just try to let the music take her away from her internal trauma. From that internal trauma, she started doing these drip paintings with items she found at home, very thinned out paint. And as you know, she is the artist that is the direct inspiration for Jackson Pollock. And it is actually documented that he saw her shows. He liked her work. So, luckily she is now coming up to the front. A little bit too late, but at least now she is being recognized for her pioneering work of using music, rhythm, and tradition to kind of take yourself out of where you were and try to feel these emotions, which are extremely complex and just, yeah. Oops. Okay, one of these days I'm going to remember how this thing goes. Okay, so last time I believe that I was able to talk about color field painting, which is usually these huge canvases, larger than this projector, and they use very limited colors. And the purpose of color field is to envelop you in a feeling driven by color association. The most famous one is Barnett Newman's Man, Heroic, and Sublime. That is a person, and it really doesn't do the image justice. Has anyone seen this at MoMA? Oh, it is fantastic, but it's heartbreaking because you see these little perimeters. You're not supposed to see it from that far away. You're supposed to see it from 3 inches away so you can let all of the red totally saturate your field of vision, and then in the very peripheries, you see these zips. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then, believe it or not, the black, there's another red, and then there's a yellowish one.
Can I presume that Pollock, if Pollock created that illustration we see right there?
No, this is by an artist named Barnett Newman, who was a color field painter, and this is by a female artist named Helen Frankenthaler, who was the creator of color field painting and who all the men took. The reason why, as you can see, she had this desire to let the paint flow and be itself. And so this is why you get this pooling of blue, this really, really light blue, because that's where the paint didn't get to. And like Pollock, she painted on the ground. But unlike Sobel and Pollock, who used a very small brush, she would more pour on the canvas. And by pouring on the canvas and kind of letting go of her emotions onto the canvas, she created very interesting images that allow you to dive in yourself. Color field paintings are really not supposed to evoke some kind of story. They're more kind of enveloping colors. Now, Lee Krasner. Lee Krasner was the wife of Jackson Pollock, and she was also a very well-known artist before her marriage to her husband, except her husband's career took off, and therefore she decided to be his manager, and she stopped painting. And the thought was that she didn't want to compete with her husband, and so, like many wives of famous artists who were also artists, they stepped away from their own career to let their husband shine. After Jackson Pollock committed vehicular suicide, pardon me, Lee Krasner came back from France and after a year took up Jackson's studio. And this was the first image that she created. It's part of the 4 seasons. And her response was, to anyone who wondered if I would ever paint after my husband's death, this is your answer. This is part of a series called The Seasons, but this is the one that is most famous and the one that you'll most likely see referred to. And this is all 4 seasons put into one, and you can see, you have your spring and your full blooming, and then things are starting to wilt, and then the seeds are dispersed. In here, she uses colors that the men would not use. These are the pinks and the greens and the fleshes, and these are considered womanly colors. Now in here you may see a few things that you can identify as body parts or fruits or flowers, and yes, they are all in there. They are sprinkled in order to reinforce the message of being productive and springing forth children, which of course she was never able to do. So this is the work by Eva Hesse. Eva Hesse was also a Holocaust survivor. However, it scarred her for life, for her very short life. You can see that she passed away in 1970. Yeah. So this work is Jackson Pollock, Janet Sobel, Helen Frankenthaler, all of those paintings put into 3D. So this mess of rope is essentially all the lines and webbing that you see, and she just picked it up off the canvas, and this is made of fiberglass and rope and wax and all kinds of things to make it sticky and strandy and just cohesive as a web. Again, this is reminiscent of the process of systematic extermination of her people, of the Jewish people, and how no matter how hard you tried to stay out, you were always caught in the web. There was always a place to trip. There was always a snare. And no matter what she could do, she could never get rid of it. And again, this was a trauma that she did not want to pass along, because a lot of these women, being either Holocaust survivors or the children of Holocaust survivors, there is a responsibility put upon them, and I've experienced this in my own family, of you have to keep the line going because we lost this branch, this branch, this branch, this branch. And so it is your duty to continue the line. And for a lot of women, they didn't want to continue the line because their parents didn't talk to them about their feelings. They just assumed that the child would get to know the horrors through osmosis. And so as we continue on, we're going to get to the children of Holocaust survivors. And I'd like you to kind of see if you can notice that shallow shell and that kind of need to be filled up by the past, but also needing to be your own person now. So Eva Hesse is really the last of the Holocaust survivor artists that you can biographically pin artworks to. This is Hang Up, and this is making fun of the painted surface, because she's making us assume that the painted surface is on the far side and what we're seeing is the back. And this is the hanger that would usually be right there, but because we don't know what's on the front, how do we know how to hang it? And again, this is about the hang-ups of people who have a story, but they won't tell you, and all you can see is the back. And that's really not helpful to anybody. No. And again, this is also bringing this piece of wire so far into the space that it's reminding you that you have You, as the viewer, are part of the story of the artwork. And what you bring to your memories and what you want to show on the front will be there. She is one of these artists. She has maybe 7 works, but they're all amazing, and they are just all soul-crushing if you know her biography. So, Louise Nevelson. Louise Nevelson is a sculptor, and I had the joy of working with one of her pieces when I worked for the Palmer Museum of Art. These pieces are huge. I am 6'1". This piece is almost 9 feet tall. Louise Nevelson's works are massive, and they are, they just make you cower under their height and their weight. So, why I love Louise Nevelson is because she is one of the beginning found artists. So last time I showed you Marcel Duchamp's, the urinal. This is the outcropping of that. So what she did, because she was very poor, she walked around New York City and just picked things up off the ground. She went through the trash heap. You see here's like a wheel thing, and she picks up broken pieces of furniture, like this piece right here. And she'll pick up anything: cardboard, flowers, parts of animals, discarded car parts, and she will put them into these vignettes with all painted in a solid color, so that everything that you see, you can't tell if it was trash, if it was treasure, where it came from, what was its original purpose, but it doesn't matter, because in Louise's world, the stories she's telling you are inside. And this, if you see them in person, they're amazing, because this photograph doesn't show it as well, but there are divots and shadows, and as the light passes over works, new things are revealed, other things are hidden. It is just the ultimate expression of the treasure hunt of life, of just picking up all those little things that you get and making them beautiful and making them personal. She also did a Taurus screen that's called In Honor of the 6 Million. That piece I did not show because it is a departure. That work is all custom pieces. And she did that on purpose to show the unity of the Jewish people, and how even though we all look different, we all move the same way. When you put us together, you can see the story of all the history. And although that work is beautiful, it is moving. It's not her normal work. And so I didn't want you to get the wrong idea that if you saw something with essentially sidewalk trash, that you wouldn't give it the love that I do just because it's made of trash. So, Audrey Fleck, for my photorealist friends. So, can someone explain photorealism for me, since we have a realist painter?
I wouldn't call that photorealism. That's a painting. That's not.
This is a bad picture
of
the artwork that when you see it in person. One of the things that I am so sad about is when I used to teach, I had access through the university to all of these great images, and now I have to deal with Google. So if you would see it in person,
it would look realistic.
It would, and it does.
It's definitely about family and history, and that's what I would think it would be about.
Yes.
It looks like, my impression of that looks like you would show that picture like if you were showing like that musical years ago, Ragtime. It would have like that kind of a background.
Well, so what's interesting is this is a very Christian type of painting. And this is something called a vanitas. Now, vanitas are paintings, as I said, from the 16th century Dutch, if anybody. And these are 2 impressions. So in Christianity, one of the goals is to live a good life, live a life according to Christian values, and then after you die, you will get your reward. So in Christianity, there is a huge positive spin put on death and resurrection and next life. And that is why I understand it, because the Vanitas is part of a series that also shows Buchenwald prisoners, and it is a triptych. Marilyn is the most famous, so that's the one I went with. But as you can see here, this is the Christian ideal of memento mori, which is remember you will all die. Because again, in Christianity, when you die, that is when you get your reward, rather than on earth or in another 2 or 3 steps that I am not privy to. So we have all walks of life down here and the skulls. So everybody from the merchant, peasants, clerics, and kings will die. Now, we know that Audrey Flack was super interested in 16th century Dutch Vanitas paintings. These are slightly different. Have you come across these in museums and just go, wow, that's pretty, and then moving on? There is a secret language in here that I would be happy to explain to you if you had an extra 3 hours to learn about symbolism and all of that, but we don't. So I will just give you the cut and dry version. So here we have a bowl of water that is upright as opposed to the platter that has toppled over, meaning that life is coming to an end. Oysters are considered then and are considered now an aphrodisiac, and so there is your life continuation. You have a sardine that has been partially eaten and starting to dry out, and here is a lemon with lemon peel, again showing the difference between the inside and the outside. And then you have a nut here. Broken glass, again showing, about death and brokenness. And then over here is a Persian rug, which was the shorthand for going to heaven, because that's where they believed that Jesus was buried. So, Audrey, on the other hand, she did not do a Vanitas for herself. She did this for Marilyn Monroe. Now, can anybody tell me what Marilyn Monroe's real name is?
Norma Jean.
Norma Jean. Yes. Something. And what's interesting is that this is supposed to be the portrait of Norma Jean, and this is the portrait as Marilyn Monroe. Exactly. And so here you have a lot of your feminine trappings, you have your pearls, you have your perfume, you got your pearls, and you have your makeup, and the lipstick. Flower, remember that a flower's beauty will eventually die, and so again, that's part of the Vanitas. You have calendar up here, clock down here, and you also have your traditional fruits, And this is Audrey. She included her self-portrait right there as a child. And so you see that this vignette is half playing dress up, because even Norma Jean played dress up as Marilyn Monroe. That wasn't who she was at all as a person. And so this simultaneously speaks to the feminine problem, that they expect you to be beautiful and young and perfect forever, but you're not going to. And this was something that, unfortunately, you can see she passed away quite recently. If you get to see her work in person, I would really, really recommend it, because it is done in that same Dutch oil style. And so it's amazing. In the fruit, I see Vicky smiling back there. This is one of my favorite pieces. I have had the honor to see this piece ongoing since about 1996. So, this is Strange Fruit for David, and this is the reminder that even though Jews together have this history, that there were more than just Jews in the Holocaust. Zoe's family was not Jewish. They were Polish aristocrats who were part of the Liberation Front, and they were very anti-Nazi, and because of that, they too had all of their property taken, all of their items taken, thrown into camps. And so this is why I included Zoe. Number one, she's a Philadelphia artist. You can see sometimes pieces of fruit. Last time I was there was 3 out. That is the full scene from 2022. This is a scene from 99, 2000, and this is 2022. So, like our vanitas that we were talking about, fruit molds and naturally ages, Zoe's friend, very, very close friend, had AIDS. David is her friend. And every day she would visit him and sit with him at home and have a piece of fruit. And every day she would take it home and try to put it back after she ate it. And this was emblematic for her of a bunch of things. Number one, how helpless we truly are as people without believing in something more. And believing that there is a greater reason for everything, although it hurts, and it literally takes everything from the inside. There's still a reason, and there's still hope. It is at one time a calendar, because every piece of fruit, every piece of fruit marks a day that she went to visit, and every piece of fruit marks a time that she tried to fix him but was unable. This is also emblematic of her own mother's trauma and her mother's inability to kind of shed that trauma, and in the process instilling that same fear on her own child, and which instead of children creates this strange fruit that comes to bear.
Two things.
Yes.
One is, did Zoe tell you this?
Yes. This is current. So yes, this is from,
shared with you
yes.
this.
No, she has shared with me and lots of other people through media.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
When
This
I
is,
see this strange fruit, I think of the Billy Holiday.
yes,
Yeah.
you were supposed to.
Okay.
Yes, it is also a kind of reference to that. It is a multi layered piece, which is why it's so easy for people to get mad at it. Oh my gosh. Okay, I love your expression. Yes, people get physically angry at these pieces, which is why because they don't understand the meaning behind it to give it the label of art. They see it as garbage. They see it as the youth's lack of creativity. They see it as just waste. I mean, it is literal waste. But if you learn about her story, if you see about the other people who are trying to deal with life through these literal bite-sized pieces, I mean, this is the height of the AIDS epidemic, you know, and things were a little bit, you know, different. But yes, she has written extensively on this piece because it is still here. She never thought that these pieces, I mean, these pieces are 30 years old, and they're still there.
And where are they? In Philadelphia?
The last time I saw them at the PMA was towards the back where Marcel Duchamp was, and on the other side are like the Cy Twombly paintings, and then you go around the corner and they were there. I've also seen them at MoMA. MoMA has a couple pieces. They are at the very, very top of the tower on the left-hand side, along with the Bubbles performance art right there. Sorry, that's how I remember where things are in
You're
museums.
talking about the last 5 years? I don't know when you were at PMA.
Oh, yeah, 5 years. I was at MoMA last summer. So, yeah, they're still there, but you have to look for them. There are usually only 1 or 2 pieces of fruit, and they're in a nitrogen-filled box to keep it as preserved as humanly possible. So, You do see them out every once in a while, and when they are out, it is purposeful for time to continue to work on the piece. Yeah. It is a conservationist nightmare. Because once it's gone, but that's the purpose of the artist. The artist says, no, let it go to dust. But the art world says, but it's a really important piece of art. So we have to keep a piece of it. But if keeping a piece of it, it's like creating a zombie. Yeah. And so, again, it's one of these pieces that if you can see it, it is just so moving to think with it, to sit with it, to look at it, and really feel all the feelings that are trying to leak out of those little sketches. Barbara Kruger, who is currently still working. Her style is one of the few female artists whose style never really changed, which is very odd to me, because a lot of artists, both male and female, like to evolve over the years, but Barbara Kruger found her voice, and it's still relevant. So she was an advertising designer. And as you can see, you know, with this very black and white, with this, she only uses this one font. And both of these are emblematic of her super feminist art. Your body is a battleground, not only in terms of autonomy versus control, but also things like in capitalism. I'm sure people have experienced here the pink tax, with things like a Gillette razor. If you buy a pack of pink razors, they're like $3. If you buy a pack of blue razors, they're like 95 cents. That's called the pink tax. And so these are part of the messages that she is working against. I also love now, advertisers have really worn down women, but now they're starting to wear down men, because now you're getting the man's tax, which if you notice things like Dove body soap, if they're in men's scents, they're a little bit more expensive. Because men don't want to be seen using, you know, baby powder scent. They need car oil scent. So
That shower gel.
you buy that?
Yeah, I checked prices. I wasn't aware.
Yeah, look at it. It is insane.
Yeah.
It is absolutely.
It's like body wash. They drum it up.
Yep. The thing that shocked me after I had my daughter was the sizes. A 3T for boys, you know, would like come down to their knees. 3T for girls would like come up here. Oh. Whew. Yeah, it's. But that is the message in this, that your body is a battleground. So not only defend your autonomy, but also be yourself. Be your own person. Be your own advocate. Be your own best consumer. This is what is referring to for the male gaze. Your gaze hits the side of my face. And this is more of a classical statue than an actual photograph of a person, which is referring to the tradition of the male gaze in art, that the point of the naked female form is for your own, for the male gaze enjoyment, which is why it says your gaze hits the side of my face. Barbara Kruger is still working fabulously. This is in the Tate. And again, this is more of a capitalist critique. And again, black and white photograph with the same font. Who owns what? And this is a question that you are welcome to contemplate, but it is very current, especially in the line of subscriptions. Because everybody knows you want a subscription for your heated car seats that are already in your car, that you already bought, you know. So, our final artist is going to be Judy Chicago. Judy Chicago is one of the founders of feminist art, and she is also the most brutally honest, because her life and loss is horrific. She was the daughter of, again, Holocaust survivors, and her given name is Judy Cohen. And her family had 23 generations of Cohens that were all documented. And unfortunately, Barbara's life is not one that she could continue the line. Not only that, but when she was 8 years old, she answered the door, somebody asking where her father was, and she told them, and then her father was killed that night. Her mother was so heartbroken that she forbade any of the children from going to the funeral. Judy Chicago is now 83 years old. She has said that it has taken her into her 60s to get over the death of her father and the way that she was shunned, both physically and emotionally, from mourning. Additionally, she got married when she was 19 years old, and she was widowed at the age of 22. Yes. So she could be 87, but the last thing that I saw before leaving here, I read she was 83, and that was in this picture, and that's, I think, where my mind is sticking, but you're right. I think she's like 87, 89, because her current works are dealing with extinction and...
Because if she was born in 40, then she would have been a little girl in, like, say, 44.
Yeah.
She came to the door.
Yeah, well, it was said in her biography that she was 8 years old when the men came to the door. And USA, Chicago. Her father was a political activist, which again is very common, you know, in Jewish communities, and he was helping and the police, the FBI specifically. Yeah. And then sadly, because she lost her father, and then she lost her husband, you know, she just became so disconnected from the name Cohen. Even though she was married, it was something else, of course. But
She changed it to Chicago?
because after she died, after her husband passed, she didn't want anything to do with anything given to her by a man. She wanted to be her own person, and so she chose the name Chicago because that's where she was from. Because she was no longer Judy from her father, or Judy connected to her husband. She's now just Judy.
And her husband died of natural causes, or did he also have a violent end?
I believe he had a violent death.
Is he also political activist?
No.
Why?
I believe it was vehicle crash with alcohol involvement. So it's one of those, her dad was in the like shady stuff that she didn't know about, and her husband was just wrong place, wrong time. But still, gave him a chance. Now, this is your warning, your palette warning. You're about to see two very famous bodily works by Judy Chicago. One doesn't involve feminine menstruation. If that's something that you do not wish to see, you are welcome to leave. But
Or avert your eyes.
avert your eyes. So these were her works beforehand. This was a work from her graduate days, and then this is a little bit later. So this is Bigamy Hood. This was her final project at college, and it represents to her the inability to conceive, the inability to put together the two parts of life that are needed to continue on having children. And so this is a kind of abstraction, and you're seeing multiple body parts put together, but it's called Bigamy Hood because she ended up putting it on a car hood, because it was a case of, all right, men, if you're not going to like what I have to say, then I'm going to put it on the most masculine thing we can, which is a car hood. Now, I have been trying to wrap my head around the title for ages, because bigamy is not what's going on here. She lost her father and she lost her husband. There's no like hidden marriage, like so. My only thought is that it's called Bigamy Hood for shock value. and to get people questioning what this masculine power word means. So you can see from the very beginning, she's always been interested in the body, in the addition and subtraction of life. And then Red Flag is one of the most important works of art. This is the first representation of menstruation in art for women. So Red Flag, it's weird because it is a position of life that we will never see. As a woman, we know this is happening. We know this is a thing that occurs, but we never see that view because we're up top.
Right.
So we're disconnected from what our own body even does. And this is also a red flag of surrender because she will never have children. And that is true. She says that that is something that was not in the cards for her, and she became an artist.
What if you don't want to see that? I mean, it's...
That's why I told you to avert your eyes. I warned you.
Okay, well, yeah, but...
Well, there you go. This one's even better.
The dinner party.
Yeah.
How
Wait.
often is that resurrected?
This is on permanent display at the Brooklyn Museum.
Really?
Yes. So, yes. So if you ever want to see it, it is permanently there. And it is fantastic. So, moving on from the sadness of never having children to the celebration of all women at all times. This is her masterpiece. This is her most quoted work. And it is a celebration of anonymous women because she did not make this all herself. I mean, this is gold embroidery. It is ceramics. It is tapestry. It is everything. These are all handmade individual place settings. And this celebrates not only the anonymous art and craft that women have always done, you know, embroidery, paper, cutting, and all that stuff, but it's also taking women as a giant whole, H-O-L, W-H-O-L-E. And of course, the triangular form is representative of the pubis, the female pubis specifically, and it represents 1,038 women in history. 39 women are represented by these individual place settings. And this, of course, is a theoretical dinner party because these women, you know, are from all walks of time. And then inside on all of these porcelain tiles are the names of other women. So this is just one example. If you go to the Brooklyn Museum's website, you can see the full, I mean, they do a beautiful job, but this is just one image. And this is for Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut was the first female pharaoh of Egypt. She was not a queen, she was a pharaoh in her own right. And so this is the plate. Each woman gets a plate which has a very familiar motif on it. And this is why she is still the celebrated top of feminism, because she refuses to live any other way than her authentic self. And so I hope that you all enjoyed this part one, maybe. We do have, of course, a lot of other artists. Margaret Borkwhite, who was a photographer, Annie Albers, Hannah Wilke, loads and loads and loads of others. If you go beforehand, you have Sonia Delaunay and Merritt Oppenheim, so believe me, there are lots and lots of female Jewish artists. If you're familiar, I specifically did not show their Jewish works, but rather the ones that you will encounter more often in the wild, so that you can appreciate their mainstream works, so that when you see their heritage works, you can understand a little bit more of the biography. So thank you so very